Good morning. We will pay attention to companies today. The income statement was already completed and the net profit before tax was calculated at 324,000, but certain adjustments were not taken into account. Therefore, we have to adjust this profit with the adjustments so that we can determine what is the correct profit for the year. The authorized share capital is 500,000 ordinary shares. That is the maximum amount of shares that the company can sell. They are never allowed to sell more than 500,000 shares. We never use the authorized share capital to do any calculations. We will work with the issued share capital. And they tell us that when the business was incorporated, that means registered as a company, they sold shares at R2 per share. They don't tell us how many shares, so we will have to calculate to see how many shares were issued in the beginning. They give us the loan balance at the end of the year as 72,400, and that is the balance that's supposed to go to the following financial year. According to the loan agreement with Absa, 20,000 rand must be paid on the 30th of July each year. Interest is not capitalized, so that means you never show the interest in the loan account. Interest will be shown separately. They have to pay back 20,000 plus interest at the end of 30 July each year. Now, if we look at this entry that the bookkeeper made, the loan account was debited with 37,600 and the bank account was credited. The bank is correct, there's no mistake. But for the loan account, you were only supposed to record 20,000 on the debit side and not 37,600, because the rest of the amount is actually interest. So we reduced this balance to a lower amount because we deducted the interest from the balance. If we add this together, it means that the opening balance was 110,000. Of that 37,600, we must deduct 20,000, so 17,600 was not supposed to be on the debit side of the loan account. So to correct that mistake that was made, we will record it on the credit side. And the interest on loan account will be debited with 17,600 to indicate that that is the expense for the current year. In our balance sheet, we will show that the amount that we owe on the loan will be the 72,400 plus the 17,600. So that means we will have a balance of 90,000 for loan. Because we know that we will pay 20,000 at the end of each year, we have to split this in the balance sheet and show that non-current liabilities will be 70,000 and current liabilities will be 20,000. So you look at your closing balance at the end of the year after you recorded all the entries for the current year, and that closing balance is split between non-current liabilities that will take more than 12 months in the future to pay and current liabilities that will be paid within the next 12 months. This interest on loan will be taken to the profit and loss account because it's expense. That means that the profit that was calculated will decrease with 17,600. And for this profit that was calculated, that was given to us, we will show that we have to deduct 17,600 because the interests were not recorded in the income statement. The bookkeeper omitted the entry for depreciation. So that means if we recorded it, we would debit depreciation with 44,500 That is the expense that increases on the debit side, and we will credit accumulated depreciation with 44,500. This 44,500 must be taken to the profit and loss to show that the profit will decrease with that expense. And in my balance sheet, I will show that the accumulated depreciation that was not recorded will decrease my property, plant, and equipment. So property, plant, equipment will decrease. And in the income statement, I will show that the depreciation will reduce the profit calculated. We have a debtor and we have a creditor. Sometimes one person can be a debtor when we sell goods to them, and if we also buy goods from that same person, he will be our creditor. As the debit list shows a credit balance of 700, that means there's a 700 credit balance. At the end of the year, we will play off the debtors and creditors against each other so that we don't have to send a check to the creditor and then they send a check back to us again. Because they say in the debtors control this balance is on the credit side, it means that the business actually owes money to this debtor. That can be that we granted discount after he paid his account in full, so that means we owe him 700 Rand, or he paid off his account and then returned goods, so we owe him money for the returns. So now we will transfer that. That means the debtors will be debited and the creditors will be credited. This entry will have no effect on the income statement, but in the balance sheet, you will have to show that your debtors will increase, and in the balance sheet, the creditors will also increase. The pay-as-you-earn deduction from one of the employees was incorrectly recorded in the salaries journal. 1,600 was deducted. The correct amount is supposed to be 1,200. So, for instance, this person earned 10,000 Rand, and we deducted 1,600. Then we said his net salaries, the amount that he can take home, is 8,400. So that means that we transferred to the salaries account, that's an expense that increases on the debit side. The pay-as-you-earn account, we credited with 1,600. So included in this 5,800 is 1,600 that we recorded there. And then we showed that the amount that we owed to the person was the 10,000 minus the 1,600. So included in that 13,000 is the 8,400 that we already recorded. Now this entry was incorrect. This pay-as-you-earn was supposed to be 1,200. So it means the basic salary was still 10,000 minus the 1,200 will give us 8,800 Rand. So the net salaries was also incorrect that we recorded. The salaries is correct. There's no mistake in the salaries account. This pay-as-you-earn, we showed that we owe SARS 1,600. It should actually be 1,200, so we must reduce this liability on the debit side with 400 Rand. The creditors, we just showed that we owe money to the employees 8,400. That is incorrect, and we have to increase that with 400 to show that actually the amount is 8,800. There is no effect on the income statement, but when we do the balance sheet, I will show that SARS will be the 1,600 minus the 400. So in the balance sheet, I will show the liability as 1,200. Creditors for salaries, I will show as 8,800, the liability. Trading stock with a cost price of 5,600 was stolen during June. The insurance company indicated that they will pay out 4,800. According to the trial balance, the inventory balance is 98,000. But we know that there were goods stolen, so we don't have inventory with a value of 98,000 on the premises. So I have to reduce my asset on the credit side with 5,600, and I will create an expense on the debit side, 5,600. Okay, so that means we say that we've got an expense of 5,600 that will reduce my profits. But some of this money will be received from the insurance company. So I will credit the theft of inventory account with 4,800, and I will debit the insurance company with 4,800. So the actual amount that we've lost in the current year will be 800 Rand. So I deduct the debit and credit side from each other, and that means my profit will decrease with this 800 Rand. On the balance sheet, I will show the inventory as 92,400 because that is the amount that we have as inventory. In the income statement, I will decrease my profit with 800 Rand. And in the balance sheet, I will show that insurance company is a current asset, and we will receive this 4,800 in the future. I will reduce my profit with 800 Rand. The director's fees and auditor fees were not paid or recorded. That means that we have to go and open a director's fee account and show that this expense must increase with 21,000. And we will debit an audit fees account to show that this expense increases with 5,000. And I will open an accrued expense account and show that liabilities increase with the 21,000 and with the 5,000. So these two figures will be taken to the profit and loss account because it's expenses. Therefore, we will reduce our profit because it was not recorded. In the balance sheet, we will show this 26,000 as a liability. The net profit after tax will be deducted with the 21,000 and the 5,000. On 30 July 2012, Central Limited issued 50,000 ordinary shares at R3.50. That is at the beginning of the financial year. So we have to work out how much money did we actually receive when we issued these additional shares, and I will multiply 50,000 with R3.50 to see what was the inflow of money, and that gave us 175,000 Rand. They didn't tell us what was the opening balance. They just gave us the total as 575. If I subtract these two figures from each other, it means that my opening balance was 400,000. They didn't tell me how many shares we issued in the beginning, but they said it's R2 per share. So if I divide the 400,000 with a 2, it means that we issued 200,000 shares at R2 each, and that gave us 400,000 Rand. This was already recorded, so up to that time everything is correct. Then a further 50,000 ordinary shares were issued on the 1st of May, that's just before the end of the year, at R4.25. So we have to work out how much money did the business receive. And if we multiply the 50,000 with the 425, it gives me 212,500. And if I add it to the balance given, it will give me 887,500. So what is the amounts that we have to record here? We must show in our balance sheet that the bank will increase with 212,500, and for ordinary share capital must increase with 212,500. Interim dividends of 30,000 was declared and paid on the 1st of December, that's in the middle of the year, but was incorrectly recorded as salaries. So they showed this 30,000 salaries debit, bank credit. This is a mistake. We can't take dividends to my salaries account. What did I do with this 30,000? I incorrectly took it to the profit and loss account. So that means I reduced my profit and loss account with 30,000, and that is also not correct. So if I want to correct this mistake, I must credit the salaries account with the 30,000 to correct the mistake. And if I credit it there, I will debit my ordinary share dividends to show how much money was already paid out as dividends. Now that 30,000 was taken to the salaries account to reduce the profits. That was incorrect. So now I will take this 30,000 to close off the salaries account to the credit side of my profit and loss, increasing my profit. The directors declared a final dividend of 18 cents per share. Okay, now we have to look and see how many shares were already issued. We had 200,000 at the beginning of the year that was issued in previous years. Then we issued 50,000 at the beginning of the year, and we issued 50,000 at the end of the year, giving me 300,000 shares. And on these 300,000, we are going to pay out 18 cents, giving me 54,000 rand. So the expense for ordinary share dividends will be debited with 54,000, and the shareholders will be credited with 54,000. The amount that will be taken to retained income to show what is the total amount that was paid out will be 84,000 rand. So this will be taken from the retained income account. And in the balance sheet, we will show that the shareholders' outstanding amount is 54,000, so that will be a current liability. That 30,000 salaries is added back to the profit because it was incorrectly subtracted, giving us the correct profit as 265. So we can see that there's quite a difference between the one that was calculated and the correct figure. And on this correct figure, we will calculate 28%, giving us 74228. And then my profit after tax can be calculated. So I calculated the income tax now as 74,228. I will debit the income tax account with 74,228. Remember, you're never allowed to write in the income tax account until the final profit is calculated at the end of the year to determine what is the actual expense for income tax. We owe this money to SARS, so we will credit SARS with 74,228 to complete the double entry. Now, if we look in the trial balance, we see that the SARS income tax have a debit balance. When we pay provisional tax, we credit the bank and we debit SARS. So this is the amount that we already paid during the year. We were only supposed to pay 74,000, so we paid too much money, and therefore SARS actually owes us 33,772 rand. And that is the balance that will appear in the balance sheet as current assets, because we will receive this money back from SARS.